Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Thursday, the 29th of August, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at the dollar, just edging higher all the time there, so still bullish on all three time frames, remembering that's the dollar index. The euro dollar is weaker, so we're seeing the euro just edging lower against that stronger dollar. And against the Japanese yen, the dollar is holding its strength on the short term chart, although the medium and long term charts still, the yen is stronger. Looking at sterling, we're falling away this morning. Back below the 122 level against the US dollar, so we're bearish on all three time frames, and against the euro just edging lower there as well, so bearish on all three time frames. Against the Swiss franc, we're back below 120, taking us bearish in all three time frames as well. Bitcoin fell quite sharply at the end of yesterday. We were above that $10,000 level. We're now down at $9,400, down some 3% this morning, so we're bearish on the short term, and medium term we're now wandering below the clouds. So this recovery in Bitcoin really stalling here, and this starting to look like the lagging line hitting long-term resistance on the cloud. We've got downside potential of 8% on the short-term targets and 24% on the long-term targets. Keep an eye on the 1-minute charts if you're trading Bitcoin. Taking a look at the S&P 500 index, it was up yesterday, so it's just holding on to cloud support. The Nasdaq 100 is still bearish on that short-term chart. The Dow was up strongly, 1%, so we are just holding on that support level. And the Russell 2000 index still looking worrying, having moved below the May low the day before. The futures this morning suggest that the US market will open higher. We're seeing the S&P future up 0.5% and the Nasdaq up nearly 3%. The Nasdaq E-mini up nearly 0.75%. So we are seeing US markets opening higher. That's edging the FTSE higher as well, although not enough to take it into bullish territory. And the FTSE 250 is down slightly, not getting that benefit of the weaker euro the way the FTSE 100 does. Taking a look at the DAX, we're edging higher here this morning as well, up 0.6%, and the CAC 40 up just under 1%. So the CAC 40 actually still holding but better than most European markets and looking bullish there on all three time frames now. The Japanese market was very flat, little change there, and the Hang Seng was actually up 1/3%, but the Shanghai Composite was down slightly, although we are in short-term bullish mode there. The Sensex in India was down, so that is bearish on the medium and short-term charts. The long-term still holding up, and the Aussie market was up slightly, but still holding its medium-term trends. One of the few markets here really to be in such a clear uptrend. Brent crude this morning is back above the $60 mark, although we're down slightly, but we are bullish on that short-term time frame. And WTI is actually up this morning, and again we are bullish on the short-term time frame there. US nat gas sitting steady at $2.22, so little change there. Gold nudging $1,540, looking very strong indeed. We are seeing a couple of doji candles there, so that's quite interesting that there's a little bit of uncertainty at this level, but we are seeing a new upside target of 1574 and 1600 there, and then of course we've got targets to 1690, 1700, so it looks like targets of 1600 and 1700 do still look reasonable for gold, so looking very strong indeed. Silver also looking strong and up this morning 1%, so that chart now looking very bullish. US 10-year yields still languishing in the 140s area, so looking pretty weak there. And if we look at the German bonds, we're seeing that they are still holding bullish on all three time frames. Taking a quick look at the individual stocks now, we look at the Dow 30. So the Dow we're seeing here is mostly up. We had Dow Inc. They were up 3.2%, and Pfizer up 2%. The Pfizer chart still looking pretty worrying there. And if we look at Johnson & Johnson, they were hit after that announcement post-market the day before yesterday, and so they are looking now bearish on all three time frames as well, so not looking great there. Taking a look at the Nasdaq 100 now, the best performer was American Airlines last night. They were up 3.6%, but the chart's still looking pretty grim. JB Hunt also not looking great on that long-term chart, and Dollar Tree up 3%, but again, not looking great. So it's really quite hard to find good looking charts at the moment. Autodesk were down 6.7%. The long-term trend still on track, but the short-term trend breaking down there, so that is a bit of a worry. And Adobe also holding on to its long-term trend, but we are seeing a little bit of a fall away there. In the Aussie market now, we had Link Administration Holdings up 9%, but that chart still looks pretty terrible. Ausdrill actually holding up 7%, but again, the chart on the long-term not looking great. Appen Group down 11%, so they were hit, although their long-term chart still looks pretty good. And Next TC were hit down 6%, and that chart's starting to break down a bit as well. The Indian market now, if we look at Sun Pharmaceuticals was the best performer. Vedanta Resources up 3.3%, but a chart looking pretty terrible. And if we look at Indiabulls Housing, we can see here that we're lower as well, and Yes Bank falling a further 3%, taking their underperformance further still. Looking to Europe now, if we look at the FTSE 100, we have Smiths Group up nearly 4% this morning. That chart's starting to look stronger on the long-term chart, a good recovery in train there, and Melrose Industries 2.3% also starting to look a little bit weaker on that long-term chart. Imperial Brands bouncing off the falls that we saw yesterday after the US mega merger, the tobacco mega merger. We are seeing them recovering a little bit. And Ocado Group has been a feature this year, starting to recover off this dip that we've seen in the last few months, so looking a little bit stronger there. Outperforming the Dow still by 35% this year. On the downside, the worst performer this morning is Microfocus. They've come out with a profits warning, and we're already below the cloud on the daily. That's really hit them hard this morning, and that's put them into bearish territory. We've got a further 10% downside according to the point and figure targets there. Taking a look at the FTSE 250, we've got a Hunting Group, they're up 3.7%, but the chart looking pretty dire. HomeServe up 3.4%, the chart there actually looking pretty good. And if we look at the downside, we've got Amigo Holdings, they're down 30% this morning as well. That chart really falling away, and Metro Bank down a further 4%. This chart just does not look better. And now looking to the top 50 in Europe, the best performer is Intesa in Italy. They're up 2%, but the chart looks pretty terrible. We've got InBev there in the brewer in Belgium. They're actually up this morning, looking pretty strong, and Airbus also looking quite strong there. On the downside, we've only got two down this morning. Westfield in Amsterdam, they're down 6.6%, and Nokia down slightly. That chart's still looking pretty terrible as well. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.